For 13 billion years, the void entity had never lost. It defeated civilizations. By predicting every decision they would ever make, kings surrendered. Artificial intelligences failed, even galaxy-sized supercomputers could not surprise it. Then it heard a strange rumor from Earth. A human chess grandmaster who occasionally sacrificed queens without knowing if the sacrifice would work. The entity couldn't understand it. Perfect logic rejected such moves. So it crossed billions of light years not to invade Earth, not to destroy humanity, but to ask one question. How can an imperfect mind defeat perfect calculation? The answer would change the universe forever.
The year was 2026. The World Chess Championship had reached its final round. Millions watched across Earth. The world's greatest grandmasters were preparing for the last game. Then, every light inside the arena dimmed. Not because of a power failure, because the stars above the stadium had disappeared. A strange silence filled the hall. The air itself seemed frozen. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of empty space. It had no face, no fixed form.
Its body looked like an entire galaxy folded into the shape of a person. The audience couldn't move. Every camera stopped recording. Every electronic system froze. Only one object continued working, the chess clock. The mysterious being looked around the arena. Its voice echoed without sound. I seek the greatest human strategist. Security teams rushed forward. They never reached it. It simply walked past them without touching them. The being stopped in front of Grandmaster Daniel Mercer. I have crossed 13 billion years to challenge you. Daniel looked at the impossible visitor. Instead of fear, he smiled. You came all this way for a chess game? The entity answered calmly. No, I came for an answer. It slowly placed one glowing hand above the chessboard. I understand mathematics. I understand probability. I understand every possible future, but I do not understand human intuition. The entire arena fell silent, because for the first time in history, humanity wasn't facing an enemy. It was facing a question. The arena remained perfectly silent. No applause. No whispers. Only the soft ticking of the chess clock. The void entity studied the board within a fraction of a second. It simulated every legal opening, every variation, every possible ending. More than 1 trillion futures unfolded inside its mind. Finally, it made its first move. A flawless opening. One that had achieved the highest success rate across centuries of human chess. The audience gasped. Grandmaster Daniel Mercer looked at the board. He didn't rush. He simply smiled. Then, without hesitation, he moved a single pawn. The void entity stopped. Its glowing eyes focused on the square. Impossible. The arena froze. Daniel leaned back. Something wrong? The entity answered calmly. Your move reduces your mathematical winning probability. It weakens your position. Daniel quietly replied. I know. The entity calculated again. 1 million futures. 10 million. 1 billion. Every result produced the same conclusion. The move made no logical sense. The cosmic being slowly looked at Daniel. Why would you intentionally choose an inferior position? Daniel smiled. Because chess isn't only about finding the strongest move. It's about making your opponent believe they already understand your plan. Several grandmasters watching the match exchanged surprised glances. The entity had mastered logic. But this was psychology. The void entity recalculated. For the first time in 13 billion years, its prediction engine returned an unfamiliar message. Ariesiol te unknown. The entity stared at the board. Then quietly whispered, This move should not exist. Daniel gently pressed the chess clock. It exists now. The audience held their breath. Because the greatest intelligence in the universe had just encountered something it could not calculate. The arena became completely silent. The void entity continued calculating every possible future, every hidden variation, every mathematical outcome. The answer never changed. Victory belonged to the entity. Its probability of winning remained 99.9999999%. The cosmic being calmly moved another piece. Its strategy was flawless, perfect, unbreakable. Then Daniel Mercer reached for his queen. The audience leaned forward. Every Grandmaster watching immediately realized what he was about to do. One elderly champion whispered, "No, he can't." Daniel smiled quietly. Then he sacrificed his queen. The most powerful piece on the board, gone? Gasps echoed through the arena. The void entity froze, its luminous eyes brightened. Error. Your probability of victory has fallen below 1%, Daniel nodded. I know. The entity couldn't understand. You willingly destroyed your strongest advantage? Daniel looked directly into the glowing eyes of the ancient being. No, I sacrificed certainty to create possibility. The void entity immediately recalculated. 1 trillion futures. 10 trillion, 100 trillion. For the first time, every prediction produced different results. Its flawless calculation engine began returning contradictions. Some timelines ended in victory, others ended in defeat. The impossible had happened. Human intuition had introduced uncertainty. Daniel calmly folded his hands. You're trying to predict what I should do, he smiled, but I'm asking what you expect me to do. The entity stared at the board, then quietly whispered, asking the wrong question. Changes every answer. For the first time in 13 billion years, the void entity experienced something it had never known. And as the chess clock continued ticking, the greatest intelligence in existence realized it was no longer playing against chess. It was playing against the human mind itself. The clock continued ticking. Neither player moved. The entire arena waited. The void entity was no longer calculating millions of possibilities. It was calculating everything. Every legal move, every emotional response, every hesitation, every heartbeat inside Daniel's body. After 13 billion years, it had never faced uncertainty like this. Finally, the entity made its decision. Its hand moved with absolute precision. A brilliant cosmic bishop crossed the board. The audience erupted. Every Grandmaster immediately understood. It was a perfect move, one that every supercomputer on Earth agreed with. The entity quietly spoke. There is now only one path left. You cannot escape. Daniel studied the board. For almost a minute, he didn't touch a single piece. He simply watched, then he smiled. You're still trying to win the game? The entity looked confused. That is the objective. Daniel slowly shook his head. Not anymore, without warning. He moved a knight to an apparently meaningless square. The audience gasped. One commentator stood up. What? That move accomplishes nothing. The entity immediately analyzed it. 1 billion futures. 10 billion. 1 trillion. Every calculation returned the same impossible result. Prediction failed. For the first time. The ancient being couldn't understand why the move existed. Daniel leaned forward. You calculate the strongest move. Humans calculate the strongest story. The arena fell silent, because every person watching suddenly realized Daniel wasn't trying to defeat the entity's pieces. He was changing. The way the entity thought, the cosmic being stared at the board. Its glowing form flickered. Then, for the very first time in its existence, the void entity quietly asked, Will you teach me? The question echoed through the arena. Will you teach me? No one moved. No one spoke for 13 billion years. The void entity had believed knowledge could only be taken, never given. Daniel Mercer smiled. I can, but first, you have to stop trying to beat me. The entity remained perfectly still. I do not understand. Daniel gently picked up the sacrificed queen from beside the board. He placed it back in his hand. Every move you've made was mathematically perfect, but you never asked what I was feeling. The entity's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. I calculate decisions. Daniel nodded. Humans don't always make decisions because they're correct. Sometimes we make them because they're meaningful. The audience listened in complete silence. Daniel pointed toward the chessboard. When I sacrificed my queen, you thought I had lost power, but my opponent started fearing possibilities. The board never changed, only your mind did. The void entity replayed every move again. For the first time, it wasn't searching for mistakes it was searching for intention its endless calculations suddenly slowed. New patterns appeared, not equations. So, victory isn't always about control, Daniel smiled. No, sometimes it's about giving someone a reason to make the wrong move. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The oldest intelligence in existence was no longer learning chess. It was learning human nature. Then, without warning, the cosmic chessboard began glowing with brilliant golden light. A voice echoed through the universe. Evaluation complete. The human trial has ended. The void entity slowly stood. Its glowing eyes widened. Even it had never heard that voice before. The mysterious voice echoed across every galaxy. Evaluation complete. The human trial has ended. The chessboard froze. Time itself stopped. The arena disappeared. Daniel Mercer looked around the stadium. The audience, even Earth, had vanished. Instead, he stood inside an endless sea of stars before him. Towered 12 colossal beings made entirely of living galaxies. The void entity slowly lowered its head. For the first time, it bowed. Daniel frowned. Who are they? The entity answered quietly. The architects. The minds that observe every intelligent civilization. One of the architects stepped forward. Its voice carried neither anger nor kindness. Daniel Mercer. You believe this was a chess match. It was not. It was an examination. The stars around them transformed into living memories. Daniel watched thousands of civilizations, each one sitting across the void entity. Every species had tried the same challenge. Every one of them played to win. Every one of them lost. Daniel looked at the architect. So why was humanity different? The architect raised a glowing hand. A vision appeared, Daniel sacrificing his queen, refusing certainty, choosing possibility, then teaching his opponent instead of humiliating it. The architect smiled. Every civilization before you treated intelligence as a weapon. You treated it as something to be shared. The void entity quietly spoke. For 13 billion years, I believe perfection meant never changing, Daniel smiled. Real intelligence means always being willing to change. The architect slowly nodded. Exactly. Suddenly, a brilliant golden chess piece appeared above the board. It wasn't a king. It wasn't a queen. It was a completely unknown piece. The architect looked directly at Daniel. Humanity. You have unlocked the final move, Daniel whispered. Final move? The architect answered. The move that no civilization has ever earned. The cosmic chessboard began to transform, and beyond it, something ancient finally awakened. The unknown chess piece floated above the board. No king, no queen. No knight. Nothing in human history resembled it. Daniel reached toward it. The architect raised a hand. Be careful. This piece cannot win games. Daniel stopped. Then why does it exist? The void entity answered softly. Because it was never created to defeat an opponent. The cosmic board transformed. Every previous match appeared at once. Thousands of civilizations. Billions of strategies. Every champion had chosen the same path. Attack, dominate. Checkmate, none had ever touched the final piece. The architects spoke together. They believed victory required someone to lose. Daniel quietly looked across the board. Then, instead of attacking, he moved the golden piece beside the void entity's king. The arena became silent. No attack. No capture, only protection. The void entity stared at the move. You could have defeated me, Daniel smiled. I wasn't trying to defeat you. I was trying to make sure neither of us lost. The chessboard erupted with golden light. Across the universe, broken stars reignited, collapsed galaxies stabilized. Ancient civilizations watched in disbelief. The final piece wasn't a weapon. It represented cooperation. The architects slowly stood. For billions of years, they had searched for a civilization capable of discovering that truth, not through power, but through choice. The void entity lowered its head. For 13 billion years, I believed intelligence existed. To guarantee victory, Daniel gently shook his head. Real intelligence creates a future where everyone can keep playing. At that exact moment, the final lock on the cosmic chessboard opened. A brilliant doorway appeared beyond the stars. The architects looked toward humanity. Then one final message echoed across existence. Humanity, the last test remains. Will you play for yourselves or for the universe? The universe became silent. Every civilization, every star, every observer waited for humanity's answer. The architect spoke one final time. Daniel Mercer, you may claim victory. You may become the greatest mind in existence. You may command every civilization. From this moment onward, the offer echoed across the stars. Unlimited authority. Unlimited knowledge. Unlimited power. Daniel looked down at the chessboard. Then he slowly pushed the crown away. I don't want to rule anyone. The architects remained silent. Daniel smiled. If I become the only winner, then the game ends. I would rather teach others how to play. The void entity closed its glowing eyes. For the first time in 13 billion years, it understood. Winning wasn't the purpose. Growth was. Learning was. Hope was. The cosmic chessboard began to dissolve into starlight. Every broken timeline healed. Every forgotten civilization regained its place among the stars. The architects watched with quiet satisfaction. One of them finally spoke. For billions of years, we searched for the universe's Grandmaster. We believed it would be the being with the greatest intelligence. The architect looked toward Daniel. We were wrong. A beam of golden light surrounded the human Grandmaster. Not as a reward. As a symbol across the galaxy. Every academy, every research world, every civilization received the same message. The title of Grandmaster belongs not to the one who wins, but to the one who helps others become stronger. The void entity stepped beside Daniel. Will humanity teach us? Daniel smiled. We'll learn together. From that day forward, the greatest chessboard in existence was no longer made of black and white squares. It became the universe itself. And whenever young civilizations asked why humans were called the universe's Grandmasters, the answer was always the same, because they proved that the greatest move is helping your opponent become your ally.
The greatest victory isn't defeating your opponent. It's inspiring them to become better. If you enjoyed this HFY story, subscribe to Irongeist HFY, leave a like, and tell us in the comments, what is the greatest move in life, winning or helping others grow? Until next time, keep thinking beyond the next move.